My name is Sarah. I'm 34 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life in Portland, Oregon. I married Daniel when I was 27, after 3 years of dating that felt like a fairy tale. He was everything I thought I wanted: stable, kind, successful in his career as an architect, and he loved me in a way that felt safe and comforting. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, talked about having kids, and from the outside, we were the couple everyone envied. But behind closed doors, there was something missing, something I didn't even want to admit to myself at first. Our intimate life was never explosive or passionate. Daniel was gentle, considerate, always asking if I was okay, but there was no fire, no intensity, no raw desire that made me lose control. At first, I told myself it didn't matter, that real love was about connection and partnership, not just physical attraction. But as the years passed, that emptiness grew inside me like a void I couldn't fill. I started having thoughts I was ashamed of, fantasies about being wanted in a way Daniel never seemed to want me. And the worst part, I blamed him for it. I convinced myself that he was the problem, that his lack of passion meant he didn't truly desire me the way I needed to be desired. If you're listening to this and relating to anything I'm saying, please help this channel grow by hitting that subscribe button. We're working hard to reach 17,000 subscribers, and your support means everything to this community. Just click subscribe and let's keep sharing these real, raw stories together. Everything changed when Marcus started working at my company last spring. He was a consultant brought in for a 6-month project, and from the moment he walked into our office in downtown Portland, I felt something shift inside me. Marcus was the complete opposite of Daniel, confident to the point of arrogance, spontaneous, always challenging me in meetings with this intense look in his eyes that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. We started having coffee together during breaks, then lunches that stretched longer than they should have. He made me laugh, but more than that, he made me feel alive, desired, like I was the most fascinating woman in the world. I knew it was dangerous. I knew I was playing with fire every time I stayed late at the office when Marcus was there, every time I texted him something that had nothing to do with work, every time I felt that flutter in my stomach when I saw his name on my phone. But I couldn't stop. The attention felt like water after years of drought, and I was drinking it in without thinking about the consequences. Daniel never suspected anything because Daniel never suspected anything. That's just who he was. Trusting, secure in our relationship, completely unaware that his wife was falling into an emotional affair that was about to become so much more. The first time Marcus touched me was in the parking garage after everyone had left. We were walking to our cars, talking about nothing important, and he suddenly grabbed my hand and pulled me against one of the concrete pillars. His eyes searched mine, asking a question without words, and I knew right then that if I didn't walk away, everything would change. But I didn't walk away. I leaned in, and when his lips met mine, it was like an explosion of everything I'd been missing, everything I'd convinced myself I didn't need. The kiss was hungry, desperate, filled with all the passion I'd been craving for years. When we finally pulled apart, I was shaking, terrified and exhilarated all at once. If you're still with me, please take a second to click that subscribe button and help us reach 17,000 subscribers. Your support keeps these stories coming, and who knows, maybe your story could be next. Hit subscribe now. That kiss opened a door I should have kept locked. Marcus and I started meeting in secret, stealing moments whenever we could. At first, it was just kissing, heated makeout sessions in his car or in the storage room at work, but the guilt was already eating me alive. Every time I came home to Daniel, I felt like a monster. He would greet me with that sweet smile, ask about my day, and I would lie straight to his face while my heart pounded with shame and fear. But the shame wasn't enough to make me stop. If anything, the forbidden nature of it all made it more intense, more addictive. Marcus made me feel things I didn't even know I was capable of feeling, and I was willing to risk everything for that feeling. The affair became physical 3 weeks after that first kiss. Marcus had booked a hotel room downtown, and I told Daniel I was going to a work dinner with clients. I remember standing in that hotel room, looking at Marcus, and having this moment of clarity where I thought, if you do this, there's no going back. You will have crossed a line you can never uncross. But the voice of reason was drowned out by the voice of desire, the voice that had been silenced for so long in my marriage. What happened in that room was everything I thought I wanted. Intense, passionate, consuming. Marcus touched me like I was something precious and dangerous all at once. And for those hours, I forgot about Daniel, forgot about my vows, forgot about everything except the feeling of being completely, utterly wanted. But the moment it was over, reality came crashing back. I cried in the shower of that hotel room, scrubbing my skin until it was red, trying to wash away what I'd done. Marcus held me afterward, told me it was okay, that we deserved to be happy, but I knew the truth. I had betrayed the man who loved me most in the world. And for what? For a few hours of physical satisfaction? For the ego boost of being desired by someone new? I drove home that night feeling like I was made of glass, like one wrong move would shatter me into a million pieces. I want to pause here and ask you something. If you're finding value in this story, if it's making you think or feel something, please subscribe to this channel. We're on a journey to 17,000 subscribers, and every single one of you matters. Click that red subscribe button and be part of this growing community. The affair continued for 2 more months, and during that time, I became someone I didn't recognize. I was living 2 completely separate lives. The devoted wife who made dinner and watched movies with her husband, and the woman who was sneaking off to hotel rooms and lying about where she'd been. The worst part was how good I became at lying. I could look Daniel in the eyes and tell him elaborate stories about where I'd been, who I'd been with, and he believed every word because he trusted me completely. That trust was a knife I was twisting deeper every single day. Daniel started noticing changes in me, but not the ones I was afraid of. He thought I seemed happier, more energized, and he attributed it to work going well. He even commented once that whatever was happening at my job was good for me, that I seemed more alive than I had in months. I wanted to scream at him, to confess everything right then and there, but I couldn't. The words stuck in my throat, and instead, I just smiled and said yes, work was great. The irony was suffocating. Marcus started pushing for more. He wanted me to leave Daniel, to start a real life with him. He said he was falling in love with me, that what we had was too special to hide, that I deserved to be with someone who made me feel the way he did. And part of me wanted that. Part of me fantasized about leaving my marriage, starting fresh with someone who understood this side of me, who made me feel desirable and passionate and alive. But another part of me, the part that still loved Daniel despite everything, knew that Marcus wasn't offering me a real future. He was offering me an escape, a fantasy that felt good in the moment, but had no foundation in reality. Everything fell apart on a Wednesday evening in late July. Daniel came home early from work, something he almost never did, and found me on the phone with Marcus. I was in our bedroom, laughing at something Marcus had said, speaking in that low, intimate tone you only use with someone you're involved with. I didn't hear Daniel come up the stairs, didn't know he was standing in the doorway until I turned around and saw his face. The look in his eyes is something I'll never forget. Confusion first, then realization, then a pain so deep it made me physically sick to witness. Please, if you're invested in hearing how this ends, help us reach our goal of 17,000 subscribers. Click subscribe right now and let's build this community together. Your click makes a real difference. I hung up immediately, started stammering out excuses, but Daniel just held up his hand to stop me. His voice was so quiet when he spoke that I had to strain to hear him. He asked me one question. How long? I couldn't even answer him. My throat had closed up completely, tears streaming down my face, and all I could do was shake my head. Daniel stood there for what felt like an eternity, just looking at me like I was a stranger. And then he walked out of the room. I heard him moving around downstairs, heard the front door open and close, heard his car start and drive away. And I just sat there on our bed, the bed we'd shared for 7 years, and realized I had destroyed everything. Daniel didn't come home that night, or the next night, or the night after that. He stayed with his brother in Seattle and refused to answer my calls. I sent him dozens of texts, long rambling messages trying to explain, trying to apologize, trying to make him understand. But there was nothing I could say that would undo what I'd done. Marcus called me that same night, wanted to know what happened, if I was okay, and I told him we were done. I told him I never wanted to see him or hear from him again, that he needed to stay away from me. He tried to argue, said we could still be together now that everything was out in the open. But I hung up on him and blocked his number. The fantasy was over, and I was left with the wreckage of reality. When Daniel finally agreed to meet me, it was at a coffee shop in neutral territory. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. We sat across from each other in silence for several minutes before he finally spoke. He told me he'd suspected something was off for weeks but convinced himself he was being paranoid, that his wife would never do something like this to him. He said the worst part wasn't even the physical betrayal, it was the lying, the fact that I'd looked him in the eyes every day and lied about where I'd been and who I was with. He asked me if I loved Marcus, and I told him the truth. I didn't know. I told him I'd been feeling empty in our marriage, that I'd been craving something I wasn't getting, and instead of talking to him about it, I'd destroyed us both. Daniel's response broke me in ways I didn't think possible. He said he knew our intimate life wasn't perfect, that he'd felt it too but didn't know how to fix it. He said he'd been planning to suggest couples therapy, that he'd been researching therapists and trying to figure out how to bring it up without making me feel criticized or pressured. He said he loved me enough to work on our problems, but I'd loved myself more than I loved him, and that's what he couldn't forgive. The fact that instead of fighting for our marriage, I'd thrown it away for an affair with someone who meant nothing in the long run. We're almost at 17,000 subscribers, and your support is what makes sharing these difficult stories possible. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and help us reach this milestone. It takes just 1 second but means so much. We tried therapy anyway, spent 3 months sitting in a counselor's office picking apart our marriage and my betrayal. The therapist helped us communicate better, helped me understand why I'd made the choices I did, helped Daniel process his pain and anger. But some things can't be fixed with therapy. The trust was gone, shattered into so many pieces that we couldn't find them all, let alone put them back together. Daniel tried to forgive me. I could see him trying, but every time he looked at me, I could see the hurt still there. The question of whether he'd ever be enough for me, whether I'd do it again the next time I felt unfulfilled. 6 months after everything came out, Daniel asked me for a divorce. He was calm when he said it, almost relieved, like he'd been carrying a burden and was finally putting it down. He said he couldn't spend the rest of his life wondering if I was being faithful, couldn't live with the constant anxiety of checking my phone or questioning where I was. He said he deserved someone who chose him every single day, not just when it was convenient or easy. And he was right. I had no argument to make, no defense to offer. I had broken us, and now we were staying broken. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly civil. We split everything fairly, sold the house, divided our assets, and moved into separate apartments on opposite sides of Portland. We don't speak anymore except through lawyers when necessary. I heard through mutual friends that he's dating someone new, a teacher he met at his gym, and apparently he seems happy. That knowledge sits in my chest like a stone. This mixture of relief that he's moving on and bitter jealousy that he found happiness after me so easily. Or maybe it wasn't easy. Maybe I just don't get to know how hard it was for him because I lost that right when I cheated. As for Marcus, I never saw him again after that phone call. He finished his contract with my company remotely and moved back to Chicago. I heard he got engaged to someone 6 weeks after we ended things, which tells me everything I need to know about what I actually meant to him. I wasn't special. I wasn't the love of his life. I was just available, willing, and convenient. The worst part is realizing that I threw away a 7-year marriage, hurt the man who loved me most in the world, and destroyed my own sense of self-worth for someone who forgot about me the moment I wasn't accessible anymore. If this story is resonating with you, if you're learning something or feeling something, please subscribe to help us grow. We're so close to 17,000 subscribers, and your click makes all the difference. Hit that subscribe button now. I've spent the last 6 months in intensive therapy trying to understand why I did what I did. My therapist has helped me see that the problem wasn't Daniel's lack of passion or our intimate life. The problem was my own dissatisfaction with myself, my own feelings of inadequacy, my own fear that I wasn't desirable or valuable. I used Marcus as a band-aid for my own insecurity, and in the process, I hurt everyone involved, especially myself. I've learned that you can't find fulfillment outside yourself when you don't have it inside yourself. All the passion and desire in the world won't fix what's broken in your own heart. The hardest part is living with the consequences of my choices. I wake up every morning in my small apartment, alone, and I have to face the fact that I did this to myself. I had something real, something solid, something that could have been repaired and strengthened if I'd just been brave enough to be honest. Instead, I chose deception, chose instant gratification over long-term happiness, chose fantasy over reality. And now I'm living in the wreckage of those choices, trying to build something new from the rubble. I've thought a lot about what I would tell my younger self if I could go back. I would tell her that feeling unfulfilled in your marriage isn't a sign that your marriage is over. It's a sign that something needs to change. I would tell her to talk to her husband, to be vulnerable about what she's feeling instead of hiding it until it festers and grows into something destructive. I would tell her that passion ebbs and flows in long-term relationships, and that the deepest love isn't about constant intensity. It's about choosing each other even when things get difficult or boring or routine. I would tell her that the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. But I can't go back. I can only move forward, carrying these lessons with me like scars that remind me of where I've been and who I never want to be again. I've started dating again recently, though it feels strange and uncomfortable. The men I meet ask about my past relationships, and I have to decide how much to tell them, whether to reveal my greatest shame or keep it hidden. I've learned that I can't build anything real on a foundation of lies, so I've started being honest. I'm divorced because I had an affair, because I made terrible choices that destroyed my marriage, and I'm working every day to become someone better than who I was. Before we get to the end, I need to ask one more time. Please subscribe to this channel. We're building something special here, a community where people can share their truths without judgment. Help us reach 17,000 subscribers by clicking that button right now. It really matters. Some nights I lie awake and think about Daniel, about whether he thinks of me, whether he's forgiven me in his heart even if we'll never speak again. I think about the life we could have had if I'd made different choices, if I'd been brave enough to fight for us instead of running to someone else. I think about the children we talked about having, the dreams we shared, the future we planned together that will never happen now. And I have to make peace with the fact that I'm responsible for all of it, that I'm the villain in this story, not the victim. But I also think about who I'm becoming in the aftermath. I'm learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. I'm learning to be honest about my feelings and needs instead of hiding them until they explode. I'm learning that true strength isn't about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about owning your mistakes and doing the hard work to ensure you don't repeat them. I'm learning that I can live with guilt and shame and regret and still find moments of peace and even happiness. The question I ask myself every day is, would I do it differently if I could? And the answer is always yes, 1,000 times yes. I would sit Daniel down and tell him I was struggling. I would suggest therapy before things got to a breaking point. I would fight for my marriage instead of abandoning it at the first sign of difficulty. I would remember that real love isn't about constant excitement and passion. It's about commitment and growth and choosing each other even when it's hard. But I can't undo what's done. I can only learn from it and try to be better. I don't know if Daniel will ever forgive me. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive myself. I don't know if I'll find love again or if I'll spend the rest of my life alone, paying the price for my choices. What I do know is that I have to keep moving forward, keep learning, keep growing, keep trying to be the person I should have been all along. And maybe someday, when I look back on this chapter of my life, I'll see it not just as my greatest failure, but as the catalyst that forced me to become someone stronger, more honest, more whole. So now I'm asking you, the person listening to this story, what would you do in my place? If you had destroyed your marriage for an affair that meant nothing, if you had hurt the person who loved you most, if you were living with guilt and regret and shame every single day, how would you find your way back to yourself? Would you try to reach out to your ex-spouse and ask for forgiveness? Or would you respect their space and leave them alone? Would you give up on love entirely? Or would you believe that you deserve a second chance despite your mistakes? Would you tell future partners about your past, risking their judgment? Or would you keep it hidden and hope it never comes to light? I really want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and tell me what you think, what you would do, how you would handle this situation. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and help us reach 17,000 subscribers. Your support means everything, and together, we can build a community where people feel safe sharing their most difficult truths. Click that subscribe button right now, and let's continue this conversation together. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure out how to be better, how to love better, how to choose better. And maybe by sharing our stories, our mistakes, our regrets, we can help each other find our way through the darkness and into something brighter. So what would you do in my place? I'm listening, and I'm waiting to hear your truth.